Young and the Restless spoilers reveal the events that Phyllis may have to face with severe psychological trauma. The life of struggle in the dark night of betrayal and psychological treatment. Phyllis is a strong woman, always ready to face all the difficulties in life. But when her life falls into the hands of Martin Laurent or Alan Laurent, everything seems to have gone beyond the boundaries of control. Not only facing being locked up in an abandoned mental facility, Phyllis is also fighting a perverted psychologist that makes her fall into a state of confusion and fear. Since being imprisoned in the hands of Alan, Phyllis has no longer been herself. She constantly feels her body being invaded by instability, and feels unable to escape from his control. Alan had subjected Phyllis and Sharon Newman to his strange treatment, locking them up in an abandoned psychiatric facility that clearly had no real therapeutic purpose. Although Sharon and Phyllis were getting along better these days, Phyllis couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She knew her body was betraying her, and nothing would give her more peace of mind than being free from Martin's control. But what was more disturbing was the feeling that Martin was trying to kill her. With each passing day, Phyllis seemed to sense Martin's presence more clearly. Although he appeared to be trying to help, his actions only made Phyllis feel more insecure than ever. It was Alan's actions in keeping her in this state that pushed Phyllis past the point of no return. Physical instability and mental collapse. With Phyllis trapped in a psychiatric facility, she began to feel physically unwell. The constant headaches, nausea, and strange physical symptoms seemed to never end. But the worst thing was the feeling of losing control of her own mind. Phyllis couldn't understand where she was, couldn't distinguish between reality and the obsessions Martin created in her mind. This terrible feeling spread and affected her psychologically. Not only did she fear for her life, but she also worried about how her loved ones would react when they realized she was no longer the Phyllis they once knew. Phyllis gradually became more and more confused, with erratic expressions that made those around her worry. Summer and Billy Abbott, the worried one. Summer Newman, Phyllis's daughter, has begun to notice a change in her mother. She cannot understand why Phyllis has changed so much. She cannot explain the confusion in her mother's eyes and the strange actions Phyllis is showing. Summer begins to worry about her mother's condition and feels helpless to help. She fears that she will lose Phyllis forever if this continues. Billy Abbott also realizes that Phyllis is no longer herself. He begins to notice Phyllis's erratic behavior, and although he does not want to hurt her, he knows that this is starting to become a serious problem. Billy feels he has to do something to help Phyllis, even though he knows that she does not accept help easily. He was confused by Phyllis's strange changes, and his constant worries about her mental health haunted him. Phyllis and Sharon, is there a real reconciliation? One of the notable changes in Phyllis's life during this period was her relationship with Sharon. After some tension, the two gradually reconciled and began to understand each other better. Sharon, with her strong mentality, helped Phyllis overcome some of this difficult part of her life. However, this harmony could not cover up the fact that Phyllis was facing an unpredictable psychological battle. Phyllis knew that Sharon was still watching her, worried about the change in her state, but Phyllis could not express all her worries. She feared that continuing to share with Sharon would only increase her anxiety, and she did not want to burden the only friend she had at the moment. Martin Laurent. A psychopath. Martin Laurent is the man behind all the troubles Phyllis and Sharon are going through. He has imprisoned Phyllis in a mental institution to perform bizarre experiments and manipulate her mind. Although he appears to be helping her, it is clear that everything he does is only for the purpose of controlling and turning Phyllis into a puppet in his hands. Phyllis feels threatened by him, and with each passing day, she feels more and more trapped in a situation from which she cannot escape. Despite the terrible trials she faces, Phyllis refuses to give up hope. She still believes that there is a way out of Martin's control. But that path is getting narrower. Can she overcome this ordeal and find herself again? Is there any salvation for Phyllis, or will she be trapped in Martin's mind games forever? It is certain that with the help of Summer, Billy, and Sharon, Phyllis will not give up on her life easily. But what she has to go through will not be easy, and may leave indelible marks on her life. Time will tell what questions remain unanswered about Phyllis Summers, but one thing is certain, she will never be the same. Facing herself and salvation from loved ones, Phyllis Summers has always been a strong woman, not easily defeated by any challenge in life. But there comes a time when all that resilience seems not enough for her to fight against the ghosts of the past and the psychological wounds that she cannot escape. During this time, loved ones like Billy Abbott, Summer, and Daniel must stand by her, but will their love and support be enough for Phyllis to overcome the psychological storm that threatens her life? Fatigue and facing wounds. Phyllis's life has gone through many storms, but this time seems to be the biggest turning point in her life. After suffering severe psychological trauma and having her life manipulated by Martin Laurent, Phyllis can no longer hide her condition. She tried to maintain her composure, especially in front of Summer and Daniel, her two closest friends. But gradually, the unusual manifestations could no longer be hidden. Although Phyllis tried to act fine, her body and mind could no longer handle the pressure. The persistent headaches, the constant anxiety, and the extreme panic were too much for her to bear. Phyllis knew that she had a mental health problem, but she didn't know what to do. She tried to keep things from getting out, but the more she tried to hide it, the worse it got. Billy Abbott, the constant companion. When he noticed that Phyllis was struggling, Billy Abbott was the first to notice a clear change in her. As someone who had seen Chelsea struggle with mental health issues, Billy knew that support and love from loved ones were the most important things at this time. Although he cannot help Phyllis heal all the wounds in her heart, Billy still decides to stand by her side, helping her overcome these dark days. Billy has proven that he is not only a loyal friend but also someone who is willing to share the burden with Phyllis. Whenever Phyllis feels confused and lonely, Billy is always there, ready to listen and give encouraging advice. But, is a close friend like Billy enough to help Phyllis overcome everything? Although Billy's presence means a lot to Phyllis, he also realizes that he cannot do everything. Phyllis needs psychologists, doctors who can understand and help her recover properly. The psychological wounds she carries in her heart cannot be healed by love alone. Billy can be a spiritual support, but Phyllis will need more than that if she wants to find herself again. Fairview, a necessary journey to treatment. As her mental health continues to deteriorate, Phyllis may be facing hospitalization at Fairview or another mental health facility. Although Phyllis is still fighting back, her condition cannot last forever. She can no longer hide the fact that she is having serious mental health problems. Without proper care, she will only get worse. Phyllis's condition has become so unstable that she may need to be hospitalized in Memorial's psychiatric unit, where real doctors can help her recover and regain mental stability. This would be a big step, but sometimes, it is necessary to help Phyllis get her life back. Sharon Newman, an old friend, a valuable advice. Sharon Newman, Phyllis's old friend who was once a hostage in a terrible situation, will now be the one to convince Phyllis that hospitalization is necessary. Sharon knows Phyllis very well, and she also understands that sometimes, such a big step is the only thing that can help Phyllis recover. Sharon will not only be a sympathetic friend but also someone who understands Phyllis's pain, helping her find the strength to face the truth and overcome her fears. Phyllis and Sharon's reconciliation and empathy for each other after a long period of tension will be an important turning point in their relationship. Both have been through painful experiences, and now Sharon will be the one to advise Phyllis to do the right thing for herself. She will help Phyllis realize that sometimes, only by accepting help from others can she heal the deep wounds in her heart. Phyllis will not be able to get through this crisis without the support of her loved ones. Billy will always be there, but she will need to face herself and realize that healing cannot come from one person alone. The love and support of Billy, Summer, and Daniel is important, but Phyllis will have to seek professional treatment from psychologists who can help her overcome the darkness inside. No matter how difficult it is, Phyllis will have to fight to get her life back. It won't be easy, but with the support of those who love her, Phyllis will have the opportunity to re-emerge and regain the strength she once had. Phyllis's loved ones, especially Billy, will be important partners in her journey to find herself, but there will also be big steps that she will have to face and overcome on her own. The healing journey, hope remains. No matter how difficult the road ahead is, hope remains. Phyllis will not be alone in this journey, and with the support of her loved ones, she will have the opportunity to heal and overcome the darkness within. but most importantly, Phyllis will have to learn to trust the healing process, accept that she needs help, and that there is nothing wrong with facing the truth to find herself again. Can Phyllis survive this ordeal? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure, she won't be facing this battle alone. Phyllis Summers, one of the most prominent and powerful characters on The Young and the Restless, has proven time and again that she is a woman who can overcome any obstacle. However, this time, she is facing a challenge greater than anything she has ever faced before. The cost of betrayal, psychological manipulation, and deep trauma has sent Phyllis into a spiral with no way out, pushing her to a place she never expected. Phyllis has not only suffered physical injuries, but also fierce internal struggles. She is being held captive in an abandoned psychiatric facility, under the control of Martin Laurent, aka Alan Laurent, a character with a ruthless plot and a mysterious past. What Martin did to Phyllis and Sharon Newman, by holding them captive and experimenting with bizarre therapies, led to severe psychological devastation, causing Phyllis to feel like she was being watched and fall into a state of uncontrollable panic. Phyllis and the unusual symptoms, a collapsing body and mind. Phyllis began to feel something was wrong with her body. Strange symptoms, persistent headaches, dizziness, and sleep disturbances kept her awake. But worst of all was the constant fear and anxiety, as Phyllis always felt that Martin was trying to kill her. The confusion in her heart increased. Every step in the abandoned mental facility made Phyllis feel like she was sinking into a life she could not escape. Not only were the physical symptoms, Phyllis's mind also fell into a state of collapse. She feels like things are spiraling out of control, and anxiety begins to take over. Despite trying to keep her cool around Summer and Daniel, Phyllis's erratic behavior becomes more and more apparent, causing her loved ones to worry. Billy Abbott, a close friend who has seen Chelsea struggle with her mental health, will now have to stand by Phyllis as she faces a much bigger crisis. Billy Abbott, who has supported Chelsea through her mental health struggles, will now stand by Phyllis during a similar time. Billy understands that, like Chelsea, Phyllis needs the strong emotional support of her loved ones to get through this difficult time. Billy is not just a companion, but also a person who provides encouragement, motivation, and a strong shoulder for Phyllis to lean on. However, Billy also realized that Phyllis's condition could not be cured by his love and presence alone. She needed the intervention of mental health professionals, real doctors who could help her regain her mental stability. As time went on, Billy realized that, while he could be with Phyllis, true healing would have to come from trained doctors. This not only meant that Phyllis would have to seek psychiatric treatment, but it could also be a big step toward accepting that she could not overcome this crisis on her own. Sharon Newman, the friend who became a guide. One of the bright spots in Phyllis's story is her new relationship with Sharon Newman. Through their time as hostages together, they both experienced difficult moments and gained a better understanding of each other's suffering. Sharon, with her deep understanding of psychological challenges, may be the one to help Phyllis realize that entering a mental health facility is not a sign of weakness, but an act of strength, a decision that will help her regain her life and peace of mind. Sharon will be the one to help Phyllis see clearly that she cannot overcome this crisis on her own. She will offer sincere advice, convincing Phyllis that such a big step is necessary, not only to heal her physical wounds but also to help her recover mentally. Sharon's help will be not only a comforting conversation but also a strong guidance, helping Phyllis enter a treatment journey that she cannot refuse. Going to Fairview, a necessary and important step. With her constant anxiety and erratic behavior, Phyllis will likely need to be hospitalized in a mental health facility such as Fairview or Memorial. She will have to face the reality that her condition cannot continue without professional intervention. While this is a big step for a strong woman like Phyllis, it may be the only way for her to find peace of mind. Being hospitalized is not only an acknowledgement of Phyllis's condition, but also a powerful step towards healing. Although Phyllis will face many fears and feelings of weakness when entering a treatment environment, it is also an opportunity for her to find herself, to recover mentally and physically. The future and confronting herself. When Phyllis faces the truth that she needs help to overcome the crisis, her future will depend on whether she can accept that help. Billy, Sharon, Summer, and Daniel will be there for her, but in the end, Phyllis will be the one to step out of the darkness. She will have to face the deep pain in her heart and find a way to overcome it. This battle is not easy, but with the support of her loved ones and the intervention of a professional, Phyllis can overcome it. Will Phyllis be able to overcome her fear and psychological crisis to move forward? That remains to be seen, but one thing is for sure, no matter how difficult the road, Phyllis will not have to walk it alone. The inner struggle and support from loved ones. Phyllis Summers has always been known as a strong woman, capable of overcoming all challenges in life. However, when faced with a serious psychological crisis, she could not overcome it on her own. Having suffered deep trauma, both physically and mentally, Phyllis began to feel that she could not continue to endure without the help of her loved ones. Phyllis's story during this time is a difficult journey, with the support of her loved ones and the intervention of experts. Psychological crisis and abnormal manifestations. After being imprisoned in an abandoned mental facility under the manipulation of Alan Loran, Phyllis faced panic attacks and the feeling of not being able to control her mind. The psychological trauma she suffered made her no longer herself. She began to notice a noticeable change in her body, headaches, constant fatigue, and a constant feeling of anxiety. She felt like everything was falling into chaos, with no way out. Phyllis could no longer hide these erratic signs from her family. Her strange behavior and confusion began to worry her daughter, Summer. Summer, who had always been close to Phyllis, noticed that her mother was becoming increasingly strange. She could not explain these changes, but her anxiety continued to grow. Billy Abbott, a trusted friend. Billy Abbott, Phyllis's close friend, had witnessed her changes for a long time. He could not ignore her when he saw her having a mental health crisis. Billy knew that, just as Chelsea had faced her own mental health issues, Phyllis was also fighting a difficult battle. He understands that Phyllis needs strong support from those around her, but will his love and presence be enough to help her through this ordeal? Billy has been there for Phyllis when she needs him most, but when he realizes that Phyllis is trying to hide her problems from Summer and Daniel, Billy begins to worry. He sees that Phyllis is losing control and sinking into a state of uncontrollable panic. While he can help her emotionally, Billy realizes that Phyllis needs more than that. She needs the intervention of professionals who can help her regain her mental stability and help her overcome her crisis. While Phyllis will not easily accept Billy's help, she realizes that she cannot go through this alone. Billy patiently convinces her that she does not have to carry everything on her own. He will help her face her deeper psychological issues and find solutions to help her recover. As Phyllis's condition continues to worsen, she gradually realizes that she needs to seek treatment at a mental health facility, like Fairview, in a timely manner. This will be a big and challenging step for her. Although she has always felt that she can overcome difficulties on her own, her current mental health situation requires professional intervention. This is not easy for Phyllis. As a strong woman, admitting that she needs help is extremely difficult. But she also knows that if she does not act now, she will fall into a state of irreversibility. Phyllis knows that Fairview or Memorial will have a team of psychologists who are good enough to help her find peace of mind. Sharon Newman, Phyllis's close friend, will play a key role in convincing her that hospitalization is necessary. Sharon has been through her own struggles and understands that sometimes seeking professional help is the only thing that can help people get through it. She will tell Phyllis that this step is not a sign of weakness, but a strong act of facing the truth and finding balance in her life. Sharon and Phyllis, a strengthened relationship. Sharon and Phyllis used to have a tense and confrontational relationship. However, after the difficult times of being hostages together, they gradually understand each other and their relationship improves. Sharon will be someone Phyllis can trust and seek support from when she feels stuck. Sharon understands that Phyllis needs help from others, and she will help Phyllis overcome her self-loathing and be ready to enter a new chapter in her healing journey.